Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 109 based on novel. So let's start. Qin Mu came whooshing over and attacked him from a distance, engaging in hand-to-hand combat once he was close. The number of flying swords and flying locusts they used in this clash was even lower. Qin Mu controlled 9 swords, each of which was extremely fine as it swam to and fro around his body. Those swords were like flying fish that were the length of a finger. Pan Gong Tso's 9 flying locusts were also extremely fine, and they looked like real golden locusts. Even though the two fighters' vital chi was severely depleted, their attacks were still extremely fierce. When they were attacking from a distance yet close to each other, any carelessness would result in that person dying. Pan Gong Tso dealt with the attacks carefully, but his cultivation was still depleting too rapidly until it was finally exhausted. Qin Mu's cultivation was also exhausted, but his corporeal body was still as strong as a bull. Pan Gong Tso could only block over a dozen attacks before his defense was broken. In an instant, his entire face was bruised. Qin Mu pressed him against the floor and beat him until his eyes could no longer open. Pan Gong Tso shouted out, "Well done. Come and beat me some more if you have the guts." Qin Mu gave 2 more punches before he heard a door opening. His heart wavered and he immediately stopped. Pan Gong Tso shouted, "Come and beat me some more." Qin Mu put away his flying swords and turned around with a laugh. "Older brother, I'm satisfied, I'll find you another day." "That's right, the Dao Tai sack that's on your waist, I'm taking it." Astonished, Pan Gong Tso grabbed towards his waist, his heart turning cold. However, the Dao Tai sack on his waist had already vanished without a trace. He actually didn't realize when Qin Mu had undone it. "My craft is still slightly inferior to that of Grandpa Cripple, otherwise, he wouldn't even know if I had taken off his pants." Qin Mu tossed the Dao Tai sack up, before catching it again, and sighed to himself about how Cripple's craft was too excellent. "Kill him." Pan Gong Tso's voice sounded out, as some shaman kings finally came into the room. Qin Mu revealed a smile and turned around to close a nearby door behind himself. On his way out, he collected the flying swords that were scattered on the ground and placed them back into his Dao Tai sack. He also picked up the 10,000 locusts banner. Opening the Dao Tai sack of Pan Gong Tso, he looked inside and frowned slightly. The books in the study room weren't there, just all the other treasures from the ship, an incense burner, tea set, candlesticks. Pan Gong Tso didn't seem to have carried the books with him. What exactly is recorded in those books from the bookshelves? Techniques of gods? Or is it something else? Qin Mu hung the 2 Dao Tai sacks around his waist and returned to the study room while thinking, when I beat him up the next time, I should ask where he hid the books. Pan Gong Tso struggled to walk out of the building and come onto the deck. When he saw the gazes of the shaman kings, he knew what they were thinking of him. Once they saw him beaten up to such a state by Qin Mu, their respect for him started to fade. Pan Gong Tso said indifferently, "Cult Master Qin isn't in a good condition as well, he was severely injured by me. I know his name and surname, so when my cultivation recovers, I shall cast a spell to take his life." When his cultivation recovered, he immediately cast his spell. Yet something weird happened. Even though he knew Qin Mu's name and surname, he couldn't find him. It was as if he had vanished from this world. Pan Gong Tso cast his spell again, but his shaman spell still couldn't find Qin Mu. Impossible, he's clearly on the ship, yet the shaman's spell can't find him. Could he be hiding in some secret space, which blocks off my spell? Qin Mu returned to the painting, and the man there continued to feed him moves. Even though Qin Mu was still defeated time and time again, he was starting to last longer and longer. Time went without anyone's notice, until one day, the treasured ship trembled. Even though Qin Mu was in the world and the painting, he could still feel those tremors. The old man revealed a worried expression and called him over. Qin Mu quickly followed him out and onto the deck. A distance away from the treasured ship, countless Yudu life forms were flooding over. The tremor came from the treasured ship increasing its speed to escape them. The old man from the painting stood on the door and waved at Qin Mu. Qin Mu was stunned. Were they going to part just like this? The treasured ship left the Yudu life forms in the dust, its speed becoming faster and faster. This was something that had never happened before. On the deck, Pan Gongso and the rest grabbed onto the guardrails in a hurry so that they wouldn't fly off. Could it be that Qin Mu, that brat, used the silver helmet to drive the ship? Pan Gongso looked around for him, Qin Mu, and to his surprise saw him holding onto the guardrails as well. He wasn't wearing the silver helmet, so it was obvious that the person controlling the ship wasn't him. Pan Gongso was slightly stunned. If it wasn't Qin Mu driving the ship, then who was the one doing it? Could there be another terrifying entity hidden on the ship? Or was the ship possessed? Ever since they had come to this strange ship, weird things had been happening one after another, and until they had yet to explore the whole ship. Thinking back on it, it sure was terrifying to meet such strange incidents time and again. The treasured ship was speeding through Yudu world, which was a piece of darkness with no heaven or earth. As they sailed through this endless dark, it was truly frightening. They sailed like this for some time, until the sound of collision rang out, and everyone on the ship was almost thrown off. Some of the soldiers and great shamans didn't have a stable footing or grip, so they went overboard. Just as they landed in the darkness outside the ship, their flesh suddenly melted away, and they turned into piles of bones that clattered down. "There's land below," someone cried out in astonishment. Qin Mu looked down and saw that the treasured ship had collided with the peak of a mountain, creating a huge hole in it. It was this collision that had swung the soldiers and great shamans out. The mountain peak was soon left behind as the passengers watched the land below. What was weird about it was that the land wasn't connected, but seemed to consist of islands floating in the darkness. Boom! Once two huge pieces of land collided, the situation became intense. The tectonic plates were pushing against each other, and instantly, several thousand volcanoes erupted at the same time. Lava spewed into the sky with black smoke, reaching from 900 to 1,000 yards, creating a magnificent sight. Countless bolts of lightning flashed in the thick clouds as they ripped through the sky. The lava that had cooled in the sky came raining down as a terrifying rain of rocks. It had astonishing power, as the rocks came crashing down like meteors with long fiery trails. The earth trembled and the mountains swayed. With the rain of lava, rocks, and acid, it seemed like the apocalypse had come. As the treasured ship sailed through the heavy rain, everyone on the ship burst forth with vital chi to prop up shields to block the weird rain and not get smashed to death. Suddenly, there was a clanking sound, and the lava rain changed into diamonds. Diamonds the size of a fist came raining down from the sky. They were created by lightning strikes and scattered all throughout the ship. The treasured ship tilted to one side, so all the lava rocks and diamonds were swept off, then went around a huge volcano and sailed into the distance. On the volcano, lava was flowing like flame dragons from the mouth of the volcano to the bottom. Qin Mu hurriedly took a look and was shocked. In that earthquaking and mountain-shaking destruction, there were actually millions of people walking up the mountain. With lowered heads, they walked silently through all the destruction, acting like zombies. Every step they took seemed extremely difficult, but they still continued to walk forward as if there was a fatal force of attraction in front of them. At the mouth of the volcano, there were already quite a number of people who had reached it, jumping in without any feeling. They were then drowned by the lava rushing into the sky. Besides this huge volcano, there were thousands of others on this piece of land, which also numbered in thousands. Exactly how many people were walking with difficulty through this apocalypse and throwing themselves into the volcanoes was probably uncountable. They aren't people, they are souls. Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. He could see that these were damned souls, and they had no corporeal body. Furthermore, they were not all human souls. Some of them belonged to strange beasts, demons, dragons, phoenixes, and even heavenly devils. The treasured ship passed by volcanoes after volcanoes with countless of souls walking among them. As the volcanoes erupted, flaming red lava rushed into the sky, accompanied by deafening rumbles. With a pale face, Pan Gongtso muttered in a trembling voice, "Ye yellow springs, yellow springs." Qin Mu stared blankly, not knowing what this fellow was talking about. What yellow springs? They are going down the yellow springs. Pan Gongtso suddenly roared with all his strength. This is the world after we die. We are on the horns of Earth Count. Qin Mu shuddered when he finally understood Pan Gongtso's words. Their ship was currently sailing between the horns of Earth Count. These lands weren't lands, but sections of Earth Count's horns. The meaning behind Earth Count's 9 pacts came from the 9 bends. They meant that the 2 horns of Earth Count had 9 bends, like a flowing river. Because of that, the 2 horns of Earth Count were also sometimes called 9 bends yellow springs, which likened them to 2 trails of yellow springs. Qin Mu couldn't help feeling his scalp crawl. It did indeed look like this place was called the Yellow Springs. Because of the volcanoes erupting continuously, the lava spread across the sky and lighted the land. Looking from afar, it probably seemed like a yellow or red river. However, weren't these 2 horns a little too huge? Was this even still a god? He. Pan Gongtso seemed to have suffered a severe setback once and was now a little crazed. He muttered, "This was the truth I had once seen. I can't die, I definitely can't die, whoever that likes to die can die, I must definitely live on." The treasured ship finally sailed through the lands and left. Qin Mu turned back to take a look and could finally saw the full appearance of the 2 horns. Lava spewed out from the lands and connected all of them together. The lands on top were the sky of the lands below. With such connection, the countless pieces formed 9 bends, which looked like 9 bends yellow springs from afar. Countless souls were guided in from God knows how many worlds into these lands, to jump into the yellow springs. And yet they were only the horns of the incomparably humongous Earth Count. Looking down, Qin Mu didn't know how long the 2 horns were. They were hidden deep in the darkness, their end unable to be seen. Under the 2 horns had to be Earth Count's head. Legend said that he had a tiger's head while his horns were those of a bull. Qin Mu, however, could see the head at all. He shrunk back and made a decision deep in his heart. The Pact of Earth Count could never be signed carelessly. If he did so and it took effect, he would probably never be able to make a comeback. He was sad, though. His father had signed the Pact of Earth Count. Once it was signed, it would be difficult to make it void. The treasured ship sailed faster and faster, coming to the sky above another piece of land. This was a crumbling world shrouded in darkness. Paper boats with dead souls floated over from the black. Many of them sailed past the treasured ship and floated towards the land of the 9 pacts. The clothes of the souls were all tattered, and they all belonged to Heavenly Devil Horde, the Heavenly Devil race. However, none of them were the fiendish ones Qin Mu had seen in Great Ruins. Instead, they were all old, sick and weak. Countless paper boats floated past, which made it obvious that an extremely large number of people from Heavenly Devil Horde had died. Under normal circumstances, there wouldn't be so many deaths. Even a large-scale war wouldn't cause so many people to die at the same time. Oh soul, come back. In the time and space of the darkness, vibrations could be faintly felt. They were the miserable shouts of a devil god in another world as he chanted in a devil language. Qin Mu looked towards the source of the voice, and could faintly see an 8-armed 4-headed devil god standing in the pitch-black space balling. With a world between them, he couldn't see or hear him clearly. It seems like Juqian Devil King is crying. Qin Mu was slightly stunned that the figure that's standing in the crumbling world was Juqian Devil King. His power was so great that the crumbling world couldn't confine his figure and voice. With the Juqian world between them, he called for the souls of his people, trying to summon those who had died back. O soul, come back. Go not down to the land of darkness, where the 9 packs of earth count lie, in the dreadful horns on his forehead. He has a great humped back with bloody thumbs, pursuing men swift-footed. 3 eyes in his tiger's head, while his body is that of a bull. O soul, come back, lest you bring on yourself disaster. O soul, come back, and enter the gate of the city. Skilled priests call for you there, walking backward to lead you in. The treasured ship sailed forth, and Juqian Devil King's voice became softer and softer until Qin Mu could no longer hear what he was crying. The treasured ship left Juqian world, which was in the process of dying and, because of which there were so many heavenly devil hordes people around. Qin Mu turned back and saw many paper boats floating into Yudu from Juqian world, and his heart became sorrowful. Maybe this would be the future of the world they were currently in as well. After some time, they came to another land in the darkness. Specks of divine light lit up the darkness hazily, revealing some life forms of Yudu moving about. The speed of the treasured ship gradually became slower, and the people in it could finally see what were those divine lights. They were the rays given off by the god statues in every village. Some of them were also given off by ancient ruins. The ship had traveled to great ruins. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. When night time came to great ruins, the place got connected to Yudu. There was a part of great ruins that was overlapped with Yudu. When night came, there would be life forms from Yudu coming out for activities. At that time, Yudu world was dominant, suppressing the real world. However, when the day came, the real world would overshadow Yudu world. In the darkness, wherever the rays shone upon was the real world, and each of the rays was the entrance to the real world. This meant that if they entered any village protected by the god statues or any ruins, they would be able to leave Yudu and return to reality. The aim of the treasured ship sailing to here had to have been to send them back to the real world. The speed of the treasured ship became slower and slower, so the passengers could finally see their destination. In front of them was an ancient ruin that was giving off astonishing rays, which forced the darkness back. There was also a majestic palace over there, but it was already dilapidated. Yet the majestic god statues were still giving off rays that lighted up the darkness. The treasured ship slowly stopped and floated into the sky above the ruins. Below it, there was many strange beasts lying prone, as well as some passers-by that were getting along well with the strange beasts, while avoiding the invasion of the darkness. They all raised their heads and looked curiously at this ship that had suddenly appeared above them. Qin Mu called the 2 white bats and the dragon Qilin to jump from the ship. Pangong Tso also had his retainers to jump off the ship. One of the shaman kings looked at Qin Mu and said with a flickering gaze, "Grandmaster." Pangong Tso shook his head. "We are now in great ruins, so we shall follow the rules of great ruins. Don't create additional troubles." Qin Mu raised his head to look at the ship with a complicated expression. The treasured ship slowly rotated and changed its direction, before sailing out of the ruins and into the darkness. The man in the tree had to have driven the ship back into Yudu to look for his family. This is not Ghost Valley. Fu Yuchen looked around. The 2 white bats were slightly reserved as it was their first time leaving Ghost Valley. They wanted to hang upside down yet felt too shy to do it. Qin Mu raised his head to look at the dilapidated hall and roof over them before saying, You guys can hang on the roof and take a break. Don't alarm the others. I'll bring you guys back to Ghost Valley tomorrow. Once we reach it, I'll give you guys the antidote." The two white bats let out sighs of relief and flew up silently. They hung under the roof, their hands crossed in front of their chest. Fu Yuchen opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "This brat lied to us, we were not poisoned at all." Fu Yuchio was astonished. "We were not poisoned. Impossible, we were clearly in pain when the toxin flared up." Fu Yuchen rolled one of his eyes. The toxicity should have been undone long ago. When he first gave us the antidote, he must have already undone the poison. The rest was just to scare us. Otherwise, we would already died from poison after the passage of 2 months plus. Fu Yuchio was furious. This brat lied to us to get us to work for him. Let's eat him well done. Oh well, Fu Yuchen said. Even if we hadn't allied with him, we still would have been chased by Pan Gongso and his lackeys. They wouldn't have let us off. By allying with the brat, we instead got to live on, so it isn't bad for us. It's also because of him that we know our old ancestors are still alive. Now our white bat race won't have to go extinct. Let's go back to wake our ancestors, and have them give birth to girls for us. Fu Yuki was excited. Give birth to 2 females. No, it should be a nest of females. I want to hug them left and right. Wait a minute. Brother, we are generations away from our old ancestors. So even if they give birth to 2 girls, in terms of seniority, they would be our great-great-great-grandmothers, this seniority. Troubled expression filled the faces of the 2 white bats, and they could no longer fall asleep. In the ruins, Qin Mu leaned against the dragon Chilean's body to rest. There were over a dozen god statues guarding the place, and their rays lighted up the entire ruins. Qin Mu still didn't know where this ruin was located in Great Ruins. He would have to fly into the sky during the day to observe the surroundings. Only then could he determine his location. Pan Gongso took a glance at him, then also sat down. The dozen of great shamans, shaman kings, and the remaining few soldiers of barbarian Di Empire that were lucky to be alive surrounded him. Qin Mu looked around and saw many strange beasts. There was no lack of strong existences among them, and their physiques were huge. They were even larger than the dragon Chilean in his full form. These people are slightly interesting. His pupils slightly contracted, as his gaze landed on the bodies of some travelers. There were 3 groups of them, and one of them consisted of 3 eminent monks. They were rugged-looking, but they had kind gazes, even if there was a strong demonic air about their bodies. Little Thunderclap Monastery's monks. Qin Mu felt the demonic air about their bodies and immediately realized who they were. Little Thunderclap Monastery was a sacred ground, but it belonged to the demon race. Their head was revered as Little Rulai, and he was a junior brother to Old Rulai. He had exceptional abilities, and had also achieved the realm of Rulai. Little Thunderclap Monastery was referred to as Little Western Paradise, and was even more west than Great Thunderclap Monastery on Mount Meru. It was located on the westernmost side of Great Ruins. Since I can see the demon monks of Little Thunderclap Monastery, could we be at the west of Great Ruins? Qin Mu's heart sunk slightly. It was his first time going to such a far-off place, since Great Ruins was extremely vast. This place might be even farther away than Roland's Golden Palace. The second group of travelers only had 2 people, a man and a woman. They were both very young and looked like a married couple. There was nothing dangerous he could see about them. The 2 of them wore outfits of different tribes. The man had a white cloth wrapped around his head, revealing his black hair on the top of his head. On the other hand, the woman donned gold and silver, wearing numerous accessories made from those 2 metals and jade on her body. She had tied her head with a black head covering, and it hung down, with her beautiful hair in front of her slightly bulging chest. There was also a little red flower fastened to the top of her head. Her hand was very fair. The sleeves of her shirt were quite short, revealing more than half of her small arm. It wasn't thick, yet there were over a dozen gold, silver, and jade bracelets of different thickness on her wrist. These two people were guarding a magnificent carriage of a very strange shape. Qin Mu had seen some magnificent carriages before, and most of them were very squarish. Some of them had a yurt top with an octagon top. The yurt top represented the square earth and spherical heavens, while the octagon top represented the 8 points of a compass. They were both symbols which signified status. This carriage, however, was circular, with a circular base and a circular top. The ornaments hanging around the carriage also had the feel of a different tribe. The third group of people was 100 divine arts practitioners. Their appearance and clothing were also of a different tribe. All their pupils were blue, but Qin Mu also didn't know from which country they came. These divine arts practitioners had murderous intent leaking from their eyes, and would glance toward the young married couple and the carriage from time to time. "Cult Master, the atmosphere isn't right," the dragon Qin said after opening his eyes secretly. "There are way too many spirit weapons on that woman's body, and the abilities of those divine arts practitioners are all very strong." Qin Mu raised his eyebrows. The eyesight of the dragon Qin was indeed not bad. The gold, silver, and jade accessories that the woman was wearing were all spirit weapons. When Qin Mu glanced at them with his green heaven's eyes, each and every spirit weapon was giving off dazzling spirit ray, which showed that their power wasn't weak. To hang so many spirit weapons on her body, her abilities couldn't be weak. Pan Gong Tso had also noticed these people, and gave instructions to two of the great shamans in a low voice. One of them immediately rose and went to the side of the young couple, greeting them before inquiring about their origins. He then came back to report. "They said they are from True Heaven Palace of West Earth. They asked if we could assist them." "True Heaven Palace of West Earth?" Pan Gong Tso said. "Since they are chi refiners of West Earth's True Heaven Palace, we have no association with them and no need to guard against them. As for their matter, we won't help." The other great shaman also came back from inquiring and said, "Those divine arts practitioners are from True Heaven Palace. They wish we don't interfere with them." "They are both from True Heaven Palace." Astonished, Pan Gong Tso smiled. "It seems like an internal strife, so there's no need for us to bother with them. Those 3 demon monks are from Little Thunderclap Monastery, and there's some grudge between them and our Roland's Golden Palace, so we should guard against them." Roland's Golden Palace frequently captured humans and demons to cultivate, and had quite a number of clashes with Little Thunderclap Monastery due to capturing quite a number of demon monks from there and using their souls to cultivate. The 3 monks also saw through the origin of Pan Gong Tso and his followers. They looked at each other, but they didn't make a move. Pan Gong Tso said in a low voice, "Since we met with people from Little Thunderclap Monastery and West Earth, it means that this place is in the west of Great Ruins. It shouldn't be too far from Little Thunderclap Monastery, so the 3 monks can't be left alive. After the sun rises, we'll get rid of them immediately." Everyone acknowledged. As for Cult Master Qin, he looked towards Qin Mu, who was currently rummaging through a Daotai sack. He sensed his gaze and raised his head to give him a radiant smile. He looked like a sunshine bright boy. The Daotai sack that Qin Mu was holding was that of Pan Gong Tso. He took out items from the inside and examined them over and over again, playing with each and every one of them. What a huge hammer! He raised a white bone huge hammer and gently swung it. Instantly, countless skulls came out from the huge skull on the top, spewing soul fire in all directions. Qin Mu shook it again, and the huge skull opened its mouth to suck the smaller skulls back into its mouth. There's actually also a sword pellet inside. Qin Mu returned the white bone hammer into the Dao Tai sack, and took out a sword pellet. Once he executed it gently, countless fine swords that were like hair surrounded his palm. Cultivating to such a fine realm, your technique sure is profound. Is this the refining method of Dao sect's Dao sword? Doesn't seem so. Qin Mu shook his head. Dao sword only needs one sword and that's it. Old brother Pan, your cultivation isn't there yet. No wonder your Dao sword is only SOSO, and not as good as that of Dao master. Pan Gong so grunted and sneered. The Dao Tai sack you stole was merely a fraction of the wealth I have accumulated throughout all my lifetimes. He lowered his voice and instructed the shamans on his left and right, tomorrow morning, you shaman kings shall get rid of the 2 white bats and that fat cat. The rest will work together to get rid of the Qin brat. Qin Mu checked the items in the Dao Tai sack, before standing up and walking towards the 3 demon monks. He greeted them. Senior brothers. The 3 demon monks that had been meditating hurriedly got up to return the greeting. Senior brother. The 3 monks wore wide robes with large sleeves, but even though their robes were big, they still couldn't cover their legs, revealing razor-sharp talons and thick bird legs that were covered in feathers. Are the 3 of you from Little Thunderclap Monastery? Qin Mu asked. Does Little Rulai have a disciple that's a devil ape, his name in religion Kong? The 3 demon monks were astonished for a moment, then nodded. Senior brother, Rulai bestowed him the name in religion of Zhong Kong, and is indeed Rulai's disciple. May I ask how do you know Zhong Kong? Qin Mu smiled. I'm Heavenly Saint Cult Master, and he's my sworn brother so I naturally know him. I see. The 3 monks let down their guards and smiled. One of them said, my name in religion is Ding Ju, and these are my brothers, Ding Ji and Ding Ming. We pay our respects to Heavenly Saint Cult Master. Qin Mu took a look and Pan Gong So and said, that youth is the Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace, and has 3 shaman kings beside him. 2 of them are on Celestial Being Realm, and 1 of them is on Life and Death Realm. The 3 monks were shocked, their faces turning ashen. What can we do then? We are still not at Celestial Being Realm, we can't fight them. Qin Mu smiled. Don't worry, there's me. I'll bring you guys out tomorrow. Follow me, let's rest over there. The 3 monks relaxed and followed him to Dragon Chaline's side. They immediately greeted him. Senior brother. The Dragon Chaline was already asleep, so he didn't bother replying. The 3 demon monks had good tempers so they didn't take it to heart. They greeted the 2 white bats that were hanging from the roof as well. Senior brothers. The 2 white bats cupped their fists and returned the greeting. Senior brothers. Only then did the 3 demon monks sat down to continue meditating. Pan Gong So saw the situation, and his face turned slightly black. He humphed to himself. Qin Mu asked with a pleasant expression, have the 3 of you heard of Heavenly Saint Cult before? Ding Ju shook his head. We have only moved around in great ruins, so we have not heard before. Qin Mu was ready to speak more when the male divine arts practitioner that was guarding the carriage walked over and bowed. This senior brother. Qin Mu rose and returned his greeting before shaking his head. Please hold your tongue. The divine arts practitioner asked in astonishment, Senior brother, why do you say so? You guys are being chased by these strong practitioners. Having escaped to great ruins, I won't ally myself with you guys. Qin Mu shook his head. They have too many people, and not one of them is weak. I have enough trouble just protecting myself, so I would only be seeking death by allying myself with you. Please go back. The man revealed a disappointed expression and returned back to the carriage, saying something to it in a low voice. The voice of a little girl came from the carriage. Mother, does that big brother not want to help us? Another charming voice came from the carriage after a sigh. There is not one righteous person in great ruins to save us, mother and daughter. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows. Righteous person? I am definitely not a righteous person. I'm the heavenly devil cult master. If I don't do evil, people should already be celebrating. Yet they ask for me to still be a righteous person. Chei, I only did good deeds when I was young and hot-headed. Now that I've grown up. The night seemed to pass by very slowly, with everyone in the ruins having different intentions. It was hard to say how much later a hen dragon flapped its wings among the strange beasts, and rose to the roof of a dilapidated hall to crow toward the sky. Instantly, the darkness withdrew, and a ray of sunlight shone over from the east, hitting the mountains outside the ruins and lighting up the mountain peak. This video will end here.